Hello and welcome to the Emma's for Mama podcast. I'm your host, Abby Halberstadt, happy wife, mama to 10, Bible-believing Christian. And we are heavy on the happy wife today because I have my favorite person in the whole wide world, my husband, Shaun, on the podcast today. I'm so excited to share this conversation with you. Before we dive in, I want to highlight our podcast sponsor, Tighten Your Tinkler. Tighten Your Tinkler is a research-proven program that helps women, moms particularly, who struggle with pelvic floor issues to regain their dignity and their strength without Kegels or devices or surgery in just 10 minutes a day. If you can't imagine laughing without leaking or running without peeing on yourself, this program is for you. Just take their 5-minute pelvic floor quiz at tightenyourtinkler.com and use the code MAMA50 at checkout for $50 off their program. That's tightenyourtinkler.com. It's time to feel like yourself again. I also want to remind you about Voetberg Music Academy, where you can share lessons between siblings, or of course, you can just have one student doing their program for as little as $30 a month, especially when you use my code MSForMama20 for 20% off each month that you're enrolled. They have an engaging, fun way of getting your students to want to learn, to want to practice. And a couple of the ways they do that is by allowing your students to participate in student showcases, by letting them earn cash prizes, that's fun, and badges that are mailed to their door, and by having 24-hour access to their instructors face-to-face online. They have lessons in mandolin, guitar, piano, ukulele, and fiddle. So they have something for everyone. Don't forget to use the code MSForMama20 at checkout for 20% off. And finally, before we jump into the conversation, I want to remind you that spots are filling up in Summit Ministries' summer apologetics camps, but they have online options available as well for your students ages 13 to 25 to learn how to stand boldly for the Lord in their faith, to have courage in the face of cultural pressure, and to truly understand what they believe and why. You can visit summit.org/mama to lock in early bird rates for those remaining spots in their in-person camps. And you can use the code MAMA26 for $250 off on top of the early bird discount for a total of $500 off at summit.org/mama. Our family has benefited greatly from Summit Ministries, and I think yours will too. Okay, friends, I have a treat for you, and it is one that you have been asking for a really long time. I have my husband, Shaun, here on the podcast, and I think the last time you were here, we were talking about our adventures with the French police. And
our Europe trip. Mm-hmm. Good times.
It was good times. And people have been asking for him to come back on for a while, and it's amazing he hasn't been on more recently than this, because it is your favorite thing in the world to do.
Yeah, once a year is about right.
Or once every 2 years in this case. Yeah. Okay, so I had you guys submit some questions on social media, and we're going to dive into some of those questions. We actually have a hot date in about 2 hours, so we're going to do these as rapid fire as we can, which is probably not very rapid fire at all if y'all know me at all. I'm long-winded. And it is Valentine's Day when we're recording this, so we just thought it would be super bonding and romantic for me to do something I do all the time and feel comfortable with, and then for him to stretch himself.
Yes,
because he loves me. Thank you. Okay, so first question is kind of niche, but it is very specific to something that we have some experience with. And that is, someone submitted a question about how to find time to spend together or just prioritize your marriage when you're doing a DIY build.
Ooh, that's a tough one, because while you're doing a build, you're both so busy that even if you do have time together, you can be a little stressed. And so I think it's more about finding a way to find relaxed time together, more so than just a lot of time, because you are going to be running off your feet. She's going to be, well, in our case, she was finding all these deals, doing design work, checking places out, and
being a mom, cleaning the house, making the food,
doing the regular day-to-day, obviously,
right,
on top of that. And then all the work that goes into actually doing the build on my side. I'm physically worn out. She's mentally worn out.
Physically too. Just a different kind. Yeah.
And so when we get together, it's hard to let all that go and just be together in a relaxed, enjoyable way. So some things, like I remember her bringing a meal to the work site, late when I was working late, and I know she had a long day, but she still made a meal for me and brought it out, and it was spontaneous. I didn't know she was coming, and that really kind of boosted me. And I loved that time that you did that. And um,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, I mean, I feel like this actually segues into a question that we got asked over and over again, which is how do you make time for each other and to prioritize your marriage when you're in a season of small children or building a business? Or there were a lot of kind of contingencies that people placed on it. Basically, when you are run off your feet and really tired and feel like you have all of the reasons not to prioritize your marriage because these other things are just pulling you every which direction and seem so important that it's like, well, we said till death do us part, so let's just kind of assume that it's going to be there. Assuming is never a good idea.
Yeah, you need to be proactive about protecting the time, because otherwise, with kids especially, it's going to disappear. They're going to want all of it. So you need to say, bedtime is this, and that means we need to start at this time because we know how the bedtime goes. And if you have older kids, you can still have certain nights that they don't have to go to sleep, but they do need to be in their rooms doing quiet time or whatever it is, so that we can have the time that we protect, because it's so important to have that.
Yeah, and it really is about intentionality. I talk about intentionality with parenting so much, but if you're not first intentional, if you're married and you have kids, then I truly believe that you are called to prioritize that marriage relationship first. And from that, when you have cherished it and nourished it and fed it and grown it, flows so much more energy to invest and be intentional with your children.
And in a sense, you're doing that for your kids because you're modeling what you want them to do in the future as well. And they see you have a healthy marriage and have time together while still investing in them and spending time with them, but also protecting that marriage time as well.
And if that sounds impossible, you're like, okay, yeah, but practically speaking, what would that look like? I will tell you from a very practical perspective that we sleep trained our babies, and it has become a very hot button topic to acknowledge even that you sleep train. There's a whole camp. For anyone watching this video, you're watching me fight with a hair that's in my eyes, but anybody else that's listening, oh, I got it. There we go. So there's this idea that you're ruining your children's connection with you and that you are setting yourself up for a family relationship in general that is distant, or that you're going to have a sociopath as a teenager. I can tell you I'm not kidding. Like they're going to be more likely to commit crimes and, hate you. And there's some really, really strong fear-mongering tactics that are going along with this conversation. And it can happen on both sides. If you don't sleep train your baby, you're going to have a completely dysregulated child who can't ever self-soothe and can't function in society. That's not true either.
Yeah, but you don't want to operate out of a place of fear.
Right.
You want to be circumspect. You want to pay attention to your children and evaluate, pray about it. Don't operate out of a place of fear, though.
Right. If you're terrified that your child's going to be a serial killer because you sleep train them, that's not the right decision-making process. And I can say that sleep training for us was so beneficial because I was not as exhausted as I would have been otherwise. And we were able to protect that evening time by having a consistent bedtime rhythm, not absolute routine or schedule, but bedtime rhythm, so that we kind of knew we were getting a couple of hours together each evening. Either we had a teeny tiny baby and they were nursing and they were with us, and then we would put them down for bed. Yeah. And that's not a big deal. You can talk still.
Yeah, we're still engaging.
Yeah. Or if it's toddlers and up, they're actually going to sleep by 8 p.m. And that was a consistent priority for us. If you have practical questions, a couple of resources I would recommend are the accounts Taking Cara Babies, CARA. I'll have Ezra put it in the show notes. And I think the other one's called The Peaceful Sleeper, but I'll find it. And I don't care if you sleep train or not. I'm just saying, when people ask us this question, I feel like I sometimes have to give you vague answers when the truthful answer is this was a really useful tool for us.
Yeah. And as always, you want to apply some common sense to it. You don't super rigid with no exception.
Yeah.
You got to just have an expectation, a goal to shoot for, and be willing to adapt as needed.
Yeah. The willing to adapt as needed is kind of a theme of pursuing marriage, because one of the things that I found in the questions that I get asked is kind of, it was going well and then something changed. Everything went off the rails. Like, now what? Because it's not like it used to be.
Yeah, and if you're not going into it with the mindset of being willing to adapt as needed, then you have this expectation. If that's not met, then there's frustration, and then all it just kind of snowballs. So if your expectation is that you may need to amend your expectations, that's probably the right one to have.
Yeah, an expectation to have to amend your expectations. That's wise. Rigid expectations often result in resentment. Ooh, that was some nice alliteration. Because he didn't get home when he said he was going to, or the baby's not sleeping and I'm really frustrated, like, because this was our time. And then, somebody shows up and you've got to give them your time and be hospitable, and you're resenting that takes away from your marriage. And then it all feels like it's, gone to pot and everything's bad. That's something that both of us really advocate against, is making decisions or turning your mindset toward negativity when you're in a hard season.
Yeah.
I would say the really obvious examples would be postpartum. I had a question, again, that goes along with this, that was about the husband's schedule. Talk to me, or talk to them about kind of, it's mostly wives listening to this, but a lot of times they'll have their husbands listen as well, especially if it's applicable to both. Kind of talk about those times when you have had to travel a lot, had to work longer hours, work a job and build a house, really prioritized work, but also prioritize your family and what that could possibly look like.
Yeah. I think it takes understanding on both sides, understanding the season that you're in, again, which means you might have to amend your expectations based on the season. And then be honest with yourself. There are probably times when, work is busy, but it doesn't need as much time as I gave it. And I probably should have given it less and prioritized, quitting earlier as needed. But then also on the same token, there are times when it just really is that busy. And so understanding from the other side and, coming in to kind of just support during those times is super important, and can, defray a lot of that stress. And a big part of that is like the transition from work mode to home mode is kind of a critical time, because you can come in stressed, and if you're prepared, knowing you're in that season, and can be prepared to offload that stress through, hug, a kiss, something prepared, something that each other like, that a small gift, something, just on a semi-regular basis during a season like that can go a long way, I think.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example, harkening back to the DIY build days. Even though a lot of people won't ever do that, it's still pretty relevant. There's this whole process where you have to, quote, dry in your house, which basically means to ward off the elements. You have to get the roof on so that all of your hard work of framing doesn't get ruined. And I will say, for me personally, knowing the parameters of the kind of the timing, or the loose timing that is required for me to take on more load or have less access to him, have less of his attention, is really helpful. In the case of our second build, it was 2 years. Now, it wasn't always as intense. There were periods of intensity at certain times more than others. But one of them was this dry-in period. And so obviously we usually go to church together as a family. For multiple weeks in a row, probably 6 to 8, something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
I don't remember exactly either, but that feels about right. I was taking kids to church by myself. That's not normally something that we would, do as a family, but to get his work done and then get the roof on the house. That's what it took. And we were still worshiping together as a family, but actually attending church, he and his dad were getting the roof on the house. And I was taking kids. At the time we had 6 and then 7. And I would load them all up in the van and take them by them myself. And it was just, I will say this, it was really cool to see the provision of the Lord for both of us during that time period, because yes, we are each other's biggest fans, biggest support, biggest encouragers. We are supposed to be leaning on each other first after the Lord. But during that time when I was taking the kids to church, there was this man named Chip that would come find us in this little golf cart, and he would load us all up in his golf cart. He would see my van, and he would take us to the front of the church. And it was just cool to see the Lord's provision when I didn't have my husband to drive up and drop us off like he normally would do, or help me to get all the kids out of the car. That God provided this older man who would look out for us and come take care of us. So I want to encourage you that yes, you're prioritizing your marriage, but also don't become so dependent upon he's got to be the one that does this that you miss out on opportunities for the Lord to bless you.
Yeah. And then on the same token, if you're not in that busy season and you recognize families who are there where you've been before, you can step in and be a help in that way.
That's really good. Yeah. Another big question that we always get that goes along this line of how you prioritize each other when you have small children is, what did date nights look like when you only had very small children?
They don't have to look fancy. It doesn't have to be super romantic. Can be, but most of ours were at home eating meals, just making that time for each other. Put on the music that we like, our cooking music, cook together, and just enjoy the time together. It's more about the time than what you're doing.
Yeah, and because people love specifics, one of the things that he's really good about in intentionality with our marriage is finding things that are unique to us and finding a way to kind of perpetuate those. So this movie called Mostly Martha in German is one of our favorite movies of old. We used to watch it together more than we do now, but we have shown it to our kids and they like it too. And it has this fantastic soundtrack, except for there is no soundtrack. Not actually, that you can buy. And so Shaun ripped all of the songs and put them on a CD, and that's our cooking music. So just things that are unique. I would say connection is all about time, intentionality, but also making something that's very specific to you.
Yeah. What's your story? Pick something from that to bring into your time.
Yeah.
And make it special.
Exactly. And so we didn't pay a lot of money for babysitters. We hardly ever got babysitters. We do have really helpful parents. We have helpful family, but we didn't utilize that a ton for date nights.
Yeah, not in the early days or later. I mean, because the kids got old enough.
Yeah, and at least part of that was just like they live 30 minutes to an hour away, and taking them there and dropping them off and then picking them up or having them drive to us. Like it didn't make a lot of sense. Yeah. So it made more sense to just plan to put the kids to bed earlier. In my case, get them fed earlier. Like plan that throughout the day. I would literally prepare my day so that Thursday evening revolved around date night, because I looked forward to it every single week. Like by far my favorite night of the week.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. I get asked this fairly often. And it is, how do you work through big disagreements or big differences of opinion on things that really matter? The biggest example is, I don't want more kids, he does, or he doesn't want more kids, I do. That's like the biggest one. I have to be frank with you and say that I am very grateful that Shaun and I have aligned on the really big things.
Yeah. I mean, you're asking that question. I'm like, are we the right ones to talk about this?
Well,
I mean, is there a big issue that we actually disagree on?
I think no, there isn't. But I think what they're saying is, even if you have not personally experienced this, are there any principles biblically that you would suggest?
Yeah. Biblically, that's the word there. You've got to go back to the word and say, okay, one of us, if we disagree, is probably not as on this, or needs to pray about it. Well, you both need to be praying about it, but if you're both aligned with God's will for your life, you're going to converge. So if you're widely disparate, you both need to be in prayer to say, okay, I need to accept that I might be the one off here. I'm not going to assume they're the one that's off, but we both need to be praying about it until the Lord shows us what's the right answer.
That is literally what I always tell everyone that messages me. I say, pray about it, that your heart would change or that his would. Like that, because the Lord is going, that he would give you wisdom. And again, if you're not aligned because you have different values, you can't force your values on someone else. You've already said, I do. But it does lead into a follow-up question about submission, because the next question is always like, all right, we haven't agreed yet. So who gets to make the call?
Well, he needs to ultimately make that call, but not in a my way or the highway sense, in the I have the right weight of responsibility to make the right biblically based prayerful decision here, and then I need to go with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the struggle that a lot of moms, since it's who I have in my DMs, are dealing with is feeling like perhaps they're not being led by someone who is seeking first the kingdom of God always. That, it's human nature. We seek first our own glory. We seek first our own comfort. That's not unique to men or women. But
that is obviously it's a difficult position to be in. I think there's some peace to be had with the fact that with that greater role becomes greater responsibility, almost in the same sense as the teachers are going to be held to a higher account. If you're submitting to something that you don't agree with and you think is not the right path, he bears the greater responsibility and the greater accountability for that. And your role is to support him and to continue to pursue a biblical approach to what you're doing and a biblical way of supporting him in it. If it's something that's just totally anti-biblical, I think we're in a different conversation.
Right. It's not about what you do if someone else is in sin. Obviously, we are called to submit and respect in areas of preference, or even it could be in an area of lack of revelation. He's not there yet, but he's not going against God's word explicitly. No. And it could be that you could find a biblical support for the way that he's going about it. And yet you're there to, the Bible calls it winning them over without a word. So in other words, nagging is out. Yeah. Constantly saying, why don't you? Why can't you? Why aren't you?
Which is very often just going to make him want to not agree, even if he was starting to see the pros of it or whatever.
Yeah. My friend Blake on her account was saying that her husband has really transformed in the last year in his biblical leadership. And I know like so many wives' ears just perked up, like, what'd she do? What'd she do? And she said, he's reading his Bible, he's leading well, he's doing all these things. And she's like, he was wonderful before, but it's just a different degree. And everybody asked her what she did. How'd you achieve that? Because that's what it feels like. It feels like there's got to be some switch that we can flip to turn the tide, make him interested, make him want to lead, which is another one of the questions that I have a lot of in this box that they submitted. And she said, he told her it was watching her read her Bible. She said, I worried about myself. I worried about my own walk. And
it's convicting to see that.
And we've been pretty open about the fact that I led Bible reading for the kids for the first, 8 to 10 years or so of when our kids were small. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like why you weren't comfortable doing that at first?
I don't know about the why I wasn't comfortable. I wasn't, but that was not an excuse I should have been using. But like she said, I think the most powerful thing you can do is follow the Lord and do the things. And when if he's not leading as he should, sees that, the Holy Spirit, you need to be praying, convicts him. Yeah. And it does.
Right. So I knew that it was my job to teach my children and raise them in the admonition of the Lord as I walked, sat, lay down and stood. I just did that in the past tense. It's way harder to do that in the past tense. And so I grew up with Bible reading. He didn't. I mean, his dad is currently not a believer. He's a really nice guy, a really hardworking guy, but he's not a believer. He didn't have that example in his home. And so I consistently read to the kids, and I don't remember the transition, and prayed for him. And we had some conversations. It wasn't like I never said anything.
I think you can read that passage about without a word and think, well, we're never supposed to say a word at all. But I don't think that's it at all. It's about not feeling like you have to force it, and not feeling like you have to convince.
Or you're his Holy Spirit.
Yeah, exactly. That's where it becomes the nagging side.
Yeah.
If you're trying to be his conscience for him, it's not the right way.
Well, and I don't even remember the context. Like it's niggling in the back of my mind, but something you said recently, and I'm trying to think why I would have read or listened to something that you said about this, because again, interviews are not your favorite thing, but you said that you had changed your mind about something. It wasn't Bible reading. It was something else. And it was because I had said something to you directly. I had just said, hey, can we talk about this? And you were like, really? It was the fact that she brought it up that made me confront it. So we're not telling you not that it's not submission to bring up an issue to your spouse. Communication is so key in marriage.
Yeah. And it's just, you mention it at the right time and in the right way. And then you kind of need to watch and pray. And if you're repeatedly going back and be like, he's not doing it the way I would have done it, or he's not doing it as quickly enough, you kind of got to let that go a little bit.
Yeah.
And let the Spirit work.
Absolutely. Okay, we have time for one more question. I know this is short, and you guys are probably like, dang it, I wanted a longer one. But we are going to make our reservation on time. So that's how you prioritize your marriage right there. And the question was about a marriage book. People were asking if we would all be interested in writing a marriage book, which is very flattering. Thank you. He is my favorite person in the whole world. And he has so much wisdom, and he is such a good example to me. I'm more of a firecracker. He is just calm and steady, and obviously very articulate. So the answer is yes, we are. But it comes with a bit of a twist.
Yeah, so we're going to write a marriage book with a little bit of a twist, as she said. We're going to write about house building, but correlate the different aspects of it to also building a home, the family, So I'm excited about the opportunity to explore that.
Yeah. So you'll get a lot of anecdotes from our experiences building houses together that will flesh out a lot of these questions that you guys have asked us. Like, how did that practically work when there was so little time and so many children and so many tasks? Because we learned what it took, or at least part of what it took, to prioritize each other. And I will say, especially the second time around, the first time around was like, put your head down and go. Yeah. And I think we both had that expectation, and it was just like, make it. And we survived on those little moments of connection, like when I brought him food or, short conversations, whatever. Second time, I felt like was less stressful because we were so mentally prepared for what it took and how difficult it was going to be.
And the pacing was better.
And the pacing was not as intense and frantic. But also, I think as much as we have done things wrong in marriage sometimes, we did a really good job of somehow prioritizing like us, because we got a lot of energy and encouragement from that.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas like the first time, we learned a lot the first time.
Yeah.
We needed to communicate better.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so that is coming. It's not coming soon as some of you would like, because the traditional book publishing process is quite protracted and long. And so I think 28 is what that looks like, somewhere in that range. I don't remember the exact date.
Which is exciting because it could include
something else, which I have not announced yet. So there's a teaser for you. So I think one of the gifts, or one of the strengths, and it is a gift from the Lord, of writing for me is storytelling, but weaving principles of scripture into that so that you can put yourself in maybe a different context or situation or circumstance, but see, oh, this applies to me too. This is how this could look. Yeah. So that is coming. Okay, I almost called you Albie. That's what I call him. So it's very weird for me to say, Shaun, how are you like that?
I'll be like, who
are you talking to? Exactly. So we have pet names for each other. He's Albie, I'm Boo, which, by the way, are going to be our grandparent names too, because they're just perfect for that. Is there any one piece of advice or just tidbit that you would like to leave with them before we sign off?
So one tidbit, I would say, as part of your, well, I was going to speak to husbands, but I think this applies on both sides. As part of your quiet prayer time, remember to think through your day and your spouse's day. And remember, your seasons vary. And if you're cognizant of the season that your spouse is in and thinking about it from their perspective, that'll help you remember to treat them the way they need to be treated at that time.
Yeah, that's good. And he will actually do this a lot. Not every day, but he'll say, what is your day like? Now, I will say that I think there's usually something specific he has in mind on the days that he asks me for that. But instead of simply saying, I want you to, help me with this project or whatever, he'll ask me what I have on my schedule for that day first, which is very respectful of my time because he knows I have like a really...
You have nothing to do, so I don't know why you're complaining.
Exactly. I have what feels like puzzle pieces that have to be put together every day. There's a lot of really different things that have to like be fit in for the day to work. And he knows that. And his sometimes is like that too, but sometimes it's a little more straightforward. You go in your office, you got to get your work done. That's where you are all day. So I think it's very considerate. And I always appreciate that. And I think it can be flipped around as well to not just go, this is what I have on my plate. And so that's what I'm going to prioritize. But hey, what do you have going on? Would you have time for this? Communication.
Yeah, the win.
For the win. Okay, we hope you guys enjoyed our chat. And I think I might be able to talk him into coming back on sooner than 2 years from now.
Yeah, 1 year's good. No, I'm good. It was fun.
Good. Okay. I will see you next week.
But my stomach's growling. We need to go.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Reservations.
Yes. Bye.
Priorities.
Bye. If you enjoyed the M is for Mama podcast, I would be so honored if you would subscribe and follow along, maybe share with friends or even leave a review. And if you want more content on motherhood and biblical responses to cultural issues, be sure to follow along on Instagram at m.is.for.mama.